if we can get the rest of the world who are not living with brain pain to empathize with those who are, and to ask the direct questions, are you thinking of killing yourself? Have you made plans to take your life? And do you have the means, on a regular basis, to the people they think might be in pain, even their strong friends who seem fine? What do you do to someone who seems like they're doing well all day, every day? The valedictorian in the class, the high school football quarterback, the cheerleading captain, as an adult, the corporate office boss, the CEO, the CFO, the commander of the military unit. How do you go to them and say to them, hey, are you going through it too? Because I'm here for you. Well, it's pretty simple. You just do what I just said. How are you doing? What can I do for you? What do you need from me in this moment? Are you going through pain? If you are, tell me about it. I'm here to listen. Mm-hmm. You would be so surprised at the amount of people's lives that have been saved by somebody else just saying, I've got your back. You're not in this alone. Whatever you're going through, let's get through it together.
Welcome my guest, Kevin Hines. He is one of only 36 less than 1% to survive the fall from the Golden Gate Bridge. Kevin is a storyteller and he is a best-selling author, global public speaker, and award-winning documentary filmmaker. In the year 2000, Kevin attempted to take his own life by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. Many factors contributed to his miraculous survival, including a sea lion, which kept him afloat until the Coast Guard arrived. Kevin now travels the world sharing his story of hope, healing, and recovery while teaching people of all ages the art of wellness and the ability to survive pain with true resilience. In 2013, Kevin released his best-selling memoir titled Cracked, Not Broken: Surviving and Thriving After a Suicide Attempt. Then in 2018, he released Suicide: The Ripple Effect, a feature-length documentary film and movement focusing on the devastating effects of suicide and the tremendous positive ripple effects of advocacy, inspiration, and hope that are helping millions heal and stay alive. His motto, be here tomorrow and every day after that. Okay, y'all. This is going to be probably one of the most important episodes you listen to on this podcast thus far. As I was telling my guest today, Kevin Hines, I truly believe this is one of the most important conversations that we need to bring more light onto, because it is I'm taking a deep breath right now because I think it's such a heavy topic, but yet it's a very important topic in today's times. And I gave an introduction to my guests early on. So Kevin, first of all, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here with you.
Yeah. And like I said, I gave an introduction. So I'm just going to forewarn people. This is a very heavy topic, but I just ask you to open your ears and receive what he shares today. Either it will be for you to help another that is possibly battling with suicidal thoughts, or it's for that person that is struggling today with any mental health issues. So I just ask you to open up your ears and just receive the value he shares today. So, okay, let's go deep into it. So first, let's just walk through that day that you were on the pursuit to end your life. What did that day look like? If you could just start there.
Well, it was an overcast day in San Francisco, as it tends to be often near the Golden Gate Bridge. And I was in so much lethal emotional pain, the common denominator of how and why we lose people this way to suicide. I've been dealing with bipolar depression, mania followed by darkness and depression and panic attacks and anxiety attacks and paranoid delusions and grandiose delusions and all kinds of symptoms I was having, but I was hiding them to the extent of their severity to my family and friends. I was keeping the seriousness of my struggles to myself. I had, in effect, become great at silencing my pain. And in that silencing of my pain, I made my way out to the Golden Gate Bridge. But on the way there, I hoped, wished, and prayed that someone would stop me. I hoped, wished, and prayed that one person would see me, see my pain, and say something kind and compassionate. Brother, are you okay? Kid, is something wrong? Pal, can I help you? I had made a pact with myself. If one person says something like this to me, I won't die by my hands. If one person reaches out and is kind, I'll tell them everything and beg them to save me. Now, who knows if anyone would have done that, but on the bus that day, the only person to react to me crying aloud on a bus crowded filled with people, yelling at the voices I was hearing in my head telling me I had to die, the only person to react aloud laughed at my pain and said, "What the hell's wrong with that kid?" And the bus gets to the Golden Gate and everybody deboards, and I'm sitting there hoping the driver will see my pain. And instead he stands, turns, and says, "Come on, kid, get off the bus. I got to go," but not that nice. I walk onto the span of the walkway. I pace back and forth for 40 minutes crying like a baby. After one situation with a tourist, I leapt off the bridge. But that, Erica, is not the important part of the story, unlike so many people will tell you. This next piece is. So to all your listeners and viewers, please listen very carefully. The moment my hands left the rail, I had an instantaneous regret for my actions and the absolute recognition that I had just made the greatest mistake of my life, and it was likely too late. For 99.9% of the people who have leapt off the Golden Gate Bridge, it's been too late. I get to be here. And I believe today that getting to be here is a privilege and a gift, no matter the pain you might be in. A sea lion came to my aid in the water and kept me afloat until the Coast Guard boat arrived behind me. Now, you can call that what you want, but that's my miracle, and I will always believe that God saved my life that day. In the waters, I flailed to stay afloat before the sea lion came to my aid. I was going down in the water, and I couldn't stay above water. I kept going down. I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to die here, and no one's ever going to know that I didn't want to. No one's going to know that I knew I made a mistake. What have I just done? I don't want to die. God, please save me. And that's when the creature began to circle beneath me, bumping me up. I've affectionately named the sea lion Herbert, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Just to give it to give it a name and a cadence. And a year later, a year after my attempt, after the Coast Guard plucked me from the waters and secondarily saved my life, after Dr. Jonathan Levin, who I just reunited with, who did my surgery, the first and only of its particular kind. He invented it for me, never been done before, never been done again, saving me the ability to stand, walk, and run. After all of that, a year later to the date of my attempt, my father picked me up from City College, brought me to the Golden Gate Bridge. And right before we got there, he picked a flower. It was a purple tulip with gold pollen inside. He picked the flower and he handed it to me and he said, "Kevin, let's drop this flower over the bridge and say a prayer in thanks that you're still here. And let's find some closure together." And I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to go back to the bridge. I was terrified. I was nervous. I remember we got out of the car and I didn't want to go up there. And he said, "Kevin, we got to do this. We need closure." And really, he needed closure, and I just needed to be there to witness it with him. And we get to the walkway of the Golden Gate Bridge, and he says, "Show me exactly where." And I showed him the exact light rail. Wow. And we get to that light rail, and my father grabs my left hand in his right, and we say an Our Father and a Hail Mary from the Catholic faith, which we are of. And we drop that flower over the rail, and it wafted down very slowly. and it hit the water and it made the tiniest of ripple effects, hence the name of our film, Suicide, the Ripple Effect.
Mm.
The documentary we made about my story. And 2 feet to the right, in that very moment, popped up a sea lion.
What?
And it was arguably the most beautiful, gorgeous moment I've ever spent with my father, next to him being the best man at my wedding, and there was no other choice. It was incredible. And, you know, I've never experienced a moment like that in my life, before or after. And I just feel, especially in that moment, I felt so blessed to be alive, so lucky to exist, to get to be here, no matter the pain I'm in. Now, people look at me sometimes when I'm keynoting a presentation, and, you know, if it calls for you to wear a suit because it's a conference or whatever, people look at me and they say, oh, he's fine. He's doing great. He's recovered. None of that is true. I'm not recovered. I'm not well. I'm not fine. I fight to be well each and every day. I live with severe symptoms of bipolar depression, but I know how to cope with them. I know how to deal with them, and I know how to survive them. I live with chronic thoughts of suicide, but they'll never take me. They'll never end my life. I made a cognitive decision on that boat, that Coast Guard boat years ago, that no matter the pain I would ever be in again, I would never attempt to die by my hands, because it's not my life to take. And I realized something. I realized over time and a lot of hard work that pain is universal. Everyone's got it. Pain is inevitable. It's coming for all of us if it hasn't already. But suffering is optional. It's a choice. Unless you exist and live in a war-torn country where suffering is your real daily life. I'm talking about day-to-day brain health struggles and physical health struggles. Suffering is a choice. If you look at it differently, you can survive it differently. If you perceive it differently, if your perspective is shifted, you can always survive your pain. If you hold gratitude inside your pain, you can thrive despite of it. And that's what I learned over time. I learned that I can take my pain. I can either and this is for everybody, I can let my pain defeat me, or I can let my pain build me brick by brick from the ground up until I'm stronger than ever. I choose the latter. And that's what I've been doing for the last 22, almost 23 years, is traveling the world, sharing my story on platforms like yours, on stages like our friend Ed Milet does all around the world, and just sharing my story, trying to help people be here tomorrow and every single day after that. The goal is to get individuals around the world to recognize that they have the power within them to fight to be here, no matter what they're dealing with. I just got back from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, traveling all over Michigan to high schools across that area. Oh. And I think we had 7 students say that the presentation saved their life.
Oh, gosh.
Now, I don't own that. I'm not a life savior. No one is. I'm a conduit. I give a message. That message goes out. Kids and people and adults of all ages, they go home. They do the work, and they save and change their own lives. They bring themselves back to a better state of being. And I'm lucky I get to do this work, and I'll do it until I die of natural causes.
Oh, Kevin. Oh my gosh. I mean, how do I not get emotional hearing your story and what you're doing today? You are a miracle. And when you tell your story, there's much more to your story, but I want to really share a lot of value today and a lot of insight. So I'm not going to unpack it. Your documentary is out, correct?
You can actually find the documentary on Vimeo on demand right now for rent. But there's also educational licenses are available. So schools all over the country and really the world and conferences can educationally license the film. They can do that at suicidetherippleeffectfilm.com, suicidetherippleeffectfilm.com. And it's been seen by 2 million people in 20 different countries. So it's a powerful film. It's moving, and over 600 people have said the film saved their life.
And I truly believe that to be the truth. And I want it to go viral even more than it already has. I mean, I truly believe you or people that have survived suicide, but especially you, of what you've learned in the 22 years you've been speaking about it and what the message you share. I truly believe you should be speaking at every school. I don't know if that's a task you're willing undertaking of all the schools across the United States, but my goodness, I do believe you could save a lot of, especially teenagers, kids' lives by your message, because there's so much to be known about what goes on in the mind of somebody that's suicidal. And I myself attempted suicide. I believe I was 15 or 16. And when I say that, that's so young. But I know, what's the statistic right now? What's the common age of kids committing suicide?
Suicide is the second leading cause of death among 14 to 24-year-olds all around the country. It's terrifying.
It's
More teens and young adults die by suicide than liver disease, heart disease, AIDS, um, uh, and lung disease combined. It's a travesty,
It
and
really is. And it's the number increases every year, if I'm correct.
it seems to increase on a regular basis, and it's terrifying for parents all over the country and even all over the world. And how do we reach our kids and get them to recognize their true value, that suicide is never the solution to their problem, and that suicidal ideations are the greatest liars we know? We don't have to listen to them. But here's the problem, Erica, is that as I travel around the country, there's a few common denominators I find. I find kids who come up to me afterwards and say, I have a terrible home life, meaning they're neglected and they're abused. And it's leading to these attempts. The secondary common denominator is cyberbullying and physical bullying in these schools. And it's damaging these kids, and other students are looking them in the eyes or writing them online and saying, you should kill yourself. To anyone listening right now, especially parents, prepare your children for pain. It's hard. It's not easy to have those conversations at the breakfast, lunch, and dinner table, but they have to be had. The conversation about suicide prevention in today's society has to be had at every breakfast, lunch, and dinner table in the country, around the world, because your children are being barraged by pain in the places they go in school. And then, for the counselors on the flip side of the school, you have to be prepared for those students who are being neglected and abused at home. You have to know how to reach them and help them stay here while they have to go back to that house every day and be hurt. We have to help them understand that they can express themselves in school, they can tell their truth, and it's a safe space. And we need to spend an equal amount of money from our government on suicide prevention. That we spend more money. We spend 10 times the amount of money on smallpox, which kills one person every 60 years. How is that even possible? Why? That doesn't make any sense. Suicide is the second leading cause of 14 to 24-year-olds. Why aren't we spending that amount of money to save these kids? Because those kids are going to be our future leaders,
100%.
or we are going to be without them.
100%. So powerful. Okay, let's unpack all this. I have a million questions to ask, so I'll try to get what I can out in the hour. So first and foremost, going back to your story, and then I'm going to go to addressing everybody else, but of course, helping in your story by asking what I'm going to ask. But what do you believe would have changed your trajectory of having those thoughts? Because you were diagnosed, you have a diagnosis. And I don't know if you were diagnosed before that attempt of suicide, but what do you believe would have possibly helped you in your own position in that struggle you were having? Was a lot of it coming from school, at home, or what was contributing? What could have changed knowing what you know today?
Knowing what I know today, what could have changed the outcome of that particular day when I leapt off the bridge, what could have prevented me from attempting, was somebody saying to me, Kevin, are you thinking of killing yourself? Have you made plans to take your life? And do you have the means? That would have gotten me to open up and tell my truth. There's a myth. There's a myth in suicide prevention that by saying those words, you put the thought in someone's mind who's not already thinking it. That's not true. It's been disproven. In fact, it gives people permission to speak on their pain and a pain shared is a pain halved. And so you want to take that burden away from someone and say that you can tell me your deepest, darkest pain, and I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to be here for you. I've got your back. I'm going to listen to understand, not to respond. I'm not going to give you advice. I'm just going to be here for you. I'm just going to put my arm around your shoulder and let you tell me your pain so you can survive it. That's really the most important thing you can do to somebody. We don't have to solve people's problems. We just have to physically be there in that time of need. The problem is there's so many people that are unwilling to empathize with that kind of pain because it's brain pain. It's intangible. They can't see it. And because they can't see it, it means it's not real to them. People all around the world who know people who struggle with brain pain, what we call mental illness, they invalidate that pain. They tell people to snap out of it, get over it, move on, pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They tell them it's all in their head. Well, you're darn right it's in my head. That's where my brain is, the single most powerful organ in my body. Mostly on automatic mode, controlling every action, inaction we take, every decision, indecision. For lack of a better way of saying, if your brain is malfunctioning, there goes the rest of you. Mm. And so if we can get the rest of the world who are not living with brain pain to empathize with those who are, and to ask the direct questions, are you thinking of killing yourself? Have you made plans to take your life? And do you have the means? On a regular basis to the people they think might be in pain, even their strong friends who seem fine. What do you do to someone who seems like they're doing well all day, every day? The valedictorian in the class, the high school football quarterback, the cheerleading captain, as an adult, the corporate office boss, the CEO, the CFO, the commander of the military unit. You know, how do you go to them and say to them, hey, are you going through it too? Because I'm here for you. Well, it's pretty simple. You just do what I just said. How are you doing? What can I do for you? What do you need from me in this moment? Are you going through pain? If you are, tell me about it. I'm here to listen. Mm-hmm. You would be so surprised at the amount of people's lives that have been saved by somebody else just saying, I've got your back. You're not in this alone. Whatever you're going through, let's get through it together. It's incredible.
Amen to
in
that.
my 22 years of surviving with chronic thoughts of suicide, I've done two things every time I'm suicidal. And Eric, if I was suicidal right now, I'd look you right in the eyes through the screen and I would tell you, I need help now. Those are my 4 words. That's my shorthand for when I'm suicidal. I do it with my wife mostly, but I do it with people like my father or my friends or my therapist or my psychiatrist. I tell them my truth. I need help now. 4 simple words. Very effective. But I always say to people, maybe it's not the first to fourth person that's going to get your back, because not everybody is willing or understanding to empathize with that kind of pain. Yeah. But by the sheer probability of the number of people that you turn to, and you might have to turn to a lot, somebody will be willing to help keep you safe that day. In 22 years of chronic thoughts of suicide, somebody has always helped keep me safe. And I'm lucky that's happened.
Absolutely. And like you said, a lot of people that are suffering are silent. They'll seem normal. They'll put on a smile. Twitch was a good example that happened recently. Like nobody would have anticipated that would even be like, I don't even think his wife knew what was going on. And I think that's almost the problem too, is like we need to, no matter what, be asking our ones close to us, like, how are you doing? Like, how are you really doing? Yeah. Like my partner, he always says, like, how's your heart? Like, how are you really feeling? And it's a different way to ask somebody. It's like really a genuine way to be like, how are you really feeling? Like, what's really going on, you know? And it takes a lot for somebody to be vulnerable, especially I know teenagers, especially if they were taught in their family system, it's not safe to share your emotions, to be vulnerable. And so they suppress it, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's hard to break down those walls when somebody isn't used to being vulnerable. And I think that's a topic in itself. I want to ask you a question, since I know personally when I attempted suicide, I know that most men accomplish it. Women are less likely to. I know for myself, it was more a cry for help. So I don't know if you've heard that before. It's my truth. There's at least my experience. My attempt was a cry for help. Like I needed help, as you were just saying, like, help me now.
Right.
Uh, how does somebody distinguish it being a real thought that somebody's marinating and planning opposed to possibly just a cry for help? And then how does somebody help you? Like when you utter those words, how does somebody take action and help you?
It's a very important question and one we have to address right here. So, a cry for help um, can be things like self-harming, but self-harming can lead to suicide. So we have to be aware of that. And yes, more men die by suicide than women, but more women attempt.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean they don't believe they have to die or they're not trying to take their lives. It just means they're also in a world of pain, but their means are not as fervent. But I hate to say succeed or accomplish because there's nothing accomplished or there's no success in suicide. It's a devastating debacle, and it leaves the family left behind in a wake of destruction that they never break free from. I mean, really, when someone you love dies by suicide, and I've lost 16 people I care deeply about to suicide, 16 people in living only 40 years. That's far too many. That's too many. One person is obviously too many that you love and care for unconditionally. But I think we have an opportunity to search out the people that are either crying for help or the people that are drastically suicidal. And yes, there can be a scale and a difference. I get that, but we have an opportunity to say to ourselves, okay, if suicide is becoming such a titanic rise across the country, and it can happen to anyone, and nobody is immune to dying by their hands, then in this household, every household, we need to have the conversation at the breakfast, lunch, and dinner table and say, hey, this is a safe space. You can tell me what you're thinking. I'm not going to judge you. One of the most common things I see from students who write to me on Instagram or on YouTube is that they go home after my talk and they tell their parents they're suicidal, and their parents, their own parents, say that it's all in their head to get over it and to go back to their room. They don't take it seriously, and it breaks my heart every single time. And so you have to encourage these kids to recognize that someday they'll be out of that household. Someday they'll be leading their own livelihood, and someday they'll potentially be the leaders of this country. And we need them to recognize that that future self needs to be here. And that in order for that future self to be here, they've got to stay here today and fight every day and work every day. And one of the things I hear from people is that they want this Uberification of their wellness right now. They want to just get better with one pill. That's not how it works. You have to put in the effort, put in the time, put in the strength, and you have to exercise, eat healthily, educate yourself as to your diagnosis. You have to go to therapy. If you can't avail of therapy, you have to use different forms of therapy that are not clinically based. Music therapy, art therapy, breathwork therapy, all of these things can benefit your brain health. Instead of drinking coffee every day, drink chamomile tea to bring your body to a calm. Do vagal nerve breathing techniques that can slow a panic attack or an anxiety attack. Meditate. Do all kinds of things to benefit your brain health if you can't avail of clinical care, because so many people can't afford it, and because this country is backwards in its legislation to try to help insurance companies cover mental health care. It's disgusting. I was a part with Congressman Patrick Kennedy of passing the parity bill. I fought for that parity bill legislation. It passed.
Wow.
But insurance companies don't even follow the letter of the law. And they still don't fully cover brain and mental health challenges as they do physical health. But as First Lady Rosalind Carter said, I think almost 7 years ago, mental health is just health. Let's finally combine the two and call it what it is and say we need to recognize these people in so much lethal emotional pain. 51% of people who are contemplating suicide go to their GP, their general physician, right before their attempt.
Wow.
So they're going to their physician to ask for help in a way, but then they're quiet about it and they go still attempt. What if that physician, every single time that patient comes in, says, hey, are you thinking of killing yourself? We could save that many lives. It would be incredible.
Wow. So, what are some of the red flags when somebody is gearing close to attempting or committing suicide, taking their life? What are some for parents, teachers, friends? What are the red flags we could look for? Because I know you had certain. It's really awesome. You've changed the way schools now ask questions. I've heard that in interviews. But yeah, what are some of the red flags we should all look for? Someone we love.
So let's talk about the red flags. So red flags for someone who may be suicidal. This is someone obviously who's showing signs. So many people do not.
Right.
But for someone who is about to die by suicide, oftentimes, and what I will do is I'll give you the signs I showed,
Yes.
just so you see a prime, real, firsthand example. I gave away all of my prized possessions to people that I wouldn't normally give them to. So I gave away all my comic books. I had at the time I had a 14-year comic book collection that I gave away to my little brother who creases comic books. That didn't make any sense because I took very good care of these things. I gave away a CD collection back when CDs were a thing to a guy named Jorge I barely knew. I gave away these CDs, and it was really about $450 worth of CDs. So, those things were expensive and they took up a lot of space, and he took them off my hands, and I still haven't got them back. But I gave away all of my trophies from high school wrestling and high school football, and my plaques and things like that. I gave this away to my friends, and they really were like, Kevin, we don't want these. Why are you giving this to us? You earned these. What? We don't need this. And they didn't see that as a sign. I went to I went outside of my counselor's office, and I had at one point I had self-harmed, and one of the students noticed it on my arm, and went and told the counselor, and they called my parents, and my parents' reaction, and they don't like me saying this aloud, but both of them, and they were separated at the time, both of them said it was that I made it up, that it wasn't real, that didn't happen. I'm not blaming them.
Yeah.
They weren't educated.
Yeah.
They didn't know the severity of my brain pain because I was keeping it from them. I'm not blaming them. Parents do this all around the country. I'm asking parents who are watching this show, listening to this interview right now, if you have an inclination that your child is suicidal, self-harming, or in a world of pain, get them the help they need. And just overall, live in a kinder, more compassionate household. My mom, Debbie, she taught me something I think she taught me one of life's greatest, most valued life lessons. And I'll paraphrase.
Yeah.
She basically taught me growing up to be kind, compassionate, loving, caring, empathetic, and non-judgmental to every person I come into contact with, no matter their behavior toward me. That's a tall order. I don't meet the mark every time, but I try. And my dad taught me that hard work, because nothing good ever came without it. And that's the same with your brain health. If you don't put in the effort, if you're already struggling, you won't be well. Now, I'm not well every day, but I work. I put in the effort. I utilize a 10-step guide called The Art of Wellness, a 10-step guide I wrote with one of the greatest suicidologists of his time. I wrote that 10-step guide in my third psych ward stay to balance my brain health. And for the last almost 22 years, I've used that 10-step guide. Now, I've fallen off that guide. I've stopped those steps. I've gone right back into the psych ward 10 times in 22 years. But every time I get back on that 10-step program of science-backed, evidence-informed, proven ways to balance brain health, I stay stable. And if you want that guide, it's youtube.com/Kevin Hines. The Art of Wellness 2.0 is the name of the video. The Art of Wellness 2.0. You can just search that plus Kevin Hines on YouTube.
And I'll put that in the
Follow
show
the
notes,
guide.
of course.
Yeah. Thousands of people around the world have written to me and said that, I'm talking as far as Peru, Africa, China, Japan, Canada, UK, Ireland, all across the world, have said that by following this 10-step program, this routine is the greatest way to battle your brain pain, your mental illness. I promise you. So by following this routine, they see us in 6 to 9 months, they see a dramatic improvement in their mental well-being.
Wow.
Put in the work. Change your brain, change your life today.
Remarkable. Thank you. I mean, I just thank you so much for everything you do and that you share and that you still implement in your everyday, because you battle with these thoughts every day, which is very vulnerable for you to share. Because I want to make sure I ask this, because this is a common question or a common statement people make, that suicide is selfish, that is the most
Oh,
selfish act known to man, if you want to say. And
yeah.
I want to hear your perspective on this, because I also think contrary to this belief.
I hate that term. I hate that saying. To be selfish, you have to know you're hurting other people. Suicidal people are by definition selfless.
Hmm.
They believe everyone around them hates them, wants them gone, and thinks them to be their greatest burden. They believe they are everyone's greatest burden. They're trying to remove themselves from other people's equation so people around them will be in less pain. And the only reason they're dying by suicide and attempting is because their pain is so great they can't see straight. Ask yourself right now, what is the one thing you want to happen when you find yourselves in excruciating physical pain? What do you want that pain to do?
And
Stop and go away.
mm-hmm.
That's physical pain. Brain pain is 300,000 times worse than any physical pain I've ever experienced in my life. And I experience excruciating physical pain on a daily basis because of what I did. People who die by suicide live inside a dangerous kind of courage. It's a horrible courage. It's the wrong kind of courage. We don't want anybody to have that courage, but they do around the world, millions of them. We have to bring them back from the brink. We have to tell them it's not selfish, that it's actually very, very normal to have suicidal ideations, but suicidal ideations are never the solution to their problem. They are the problem. And that they're the greatest liars they know. And you have to look them in the eye, and I do all the time. I say, don't learn the hard way like I did. I still regret it. Don't learn the hard way like I did. Turn to anyone willing to empathize and beg for help. Beg for help until you get it. You're valued, you're loved, you're worthy, you matter. And if nobody else says it today, we love you and we want you to stay.
You're amazing. You're amazing. So I want to know, talking more to parents, parents that are loving, because as we talked about, there's some parents that are neglecting their children and not, asking them how they're doing, and they brush off any feelings they have. So knowing what you know today with your parents and whatnot, do you believe that providing a home of structure, disciplined, and mental health awareness is necessary to help that child feel, give them the strength to endure all the pain in the world that they'll experience? Because of course parents can't protect their child, like a helicopter parent can't protect them from the bullying that's going to happen. Unfortunately, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's a reality. But in the home, what would create the most stable foundation? Because I personally believe in being disciplined and giving children responsibilities so they could develop their independence, so that they could believe in themselves, that they could overcome. So knowing what you know now, what do you feel parents need to know to kind of support their child in the home?
I think building a household filled with a routine, a regimen, also letting them know and educating them about their mental health before they get to a point of brain health struggle. Also helping them understand what suicide is and how to prevent suicide before they become suicidal. And then, things like when they grow up, having them grow up with martial arts courses or learning meditation from a very young age. Having them cope with stress through meditation at a very young age, very important. Helping them understand that it doesn't matter what a bully says to you or does to you. That doesn't have an effect on the long term of your life. And you're in a microcosm of your existence right now. You're 11, 12, 13. When you're 36, this is not going to matter. And so helping them recognize that no matter what somebody else says about them, that does not define them. Even if it goes on a chat room online or a social media site, and they're so desperately embarrassed and they're so broken, that doesn't define them for the rest of their life. That's a tiny part of their existence. Helping them understand that whatever pain they go through at school, they can get through it if they recognize that they have the power to do so, and if they believe in themselves. One of the biggest tools to help students and their parents is a technique called recite, repeat, believe. Recite the good things about yourself, repeat the good things about yourself, believe the good things about yourself. If we recite negative, hateful, spiteful, hurtful, or angry things about ourselves in the mirror, if we self-loathe every day like I used to, guess what we're going to believe?
Yep.
Those hateful, spiteful, hurtful, negative things. And the inner critical voice that everybody has, no matter how tough you are or how old you are, that inner critical voice exists in all of us. But in children, it exists in a much deeper level because their brains haven't fully developed yet to fight it off. So if you teach them how to fight it off before they get bullied in the first place, they will be more resilient. Thus, they will stay alive and they won't get the suicidal ideations in the first place, especially when some other kid tells them to take their life, which is callous and disgusting, but it's happening all over the world. So we have to prepare our kids, and we have to take the time to sit with them every day and debrief after every school day. We have to say, hey, let's get the deal. My mom did a great job of that. Every night at dinner, and we had dinners at the table. Every night at dinner, she would say, what was the peak and the pit of your day? What was the best part and what was the worst part? And really, my brother and sister didn't love answering those questions. They weren't too into it, but I loved it because it made me feel like I was genuinely cared for and that every day mattered. Now that was before I attempted, a long time before I attempted. And my parents divorced. I went to live with my dad. We didn't have that same connection, and so although on the day of my attempt, I want to be very clear, my dad did say, "Kevin, what's wrong?" And I lied to him. And he said, Kev, we'll go to the beach. We'll go to the movies. We'll do whatever you want. I just want you to be with me today. I feel like you need to be with me today. And I was elated to end the pain. So I lied to him.
Yeah.
And had my father said, Kevin, are you contemplating taking your life? I think I would have told him the truth. But that's not his fault. Nobody taught Pat Hines suicide prevention techniques, And I want to say, this to the students out there who are listening, if you've ever gotten these suicidal ideations, they can be mind numbing, but you don't have to let them make you meet your end. You can actually go, I'm having these thoughts. My thoughts don't have to become my actions. They can simply be my thoughts. My thoughts don't have to become my actions. They can simply be my thoughts. And then turn to someone and say, I need help now. And when you're going through these kinds of ideations, don't keep it to yourself. That's my biggest message. Don't keep it to yourself, because that's how we lose people, and we don't want to lose you.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we touch on social media a bit? Because I've heard you share that media teaches kids, adults, how to commit suicide. And I truly believe this is a problem, social media, but it's here to stay. This is our world. So what should be done about it? What would be your suggestion? If you, knowing what you know, what would be your suggestion maybe for parents? Because it's really hard to, obviously there should be discipline in the house. Like, you can't use your phone after this hour, or limited time, or whatever. What would you say? What would be your advice for controlling possibly what they see? Because that's a tough one, right?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you this. My wife and I work with a group called Half the Story. She's actually on their board. Half the Story is an organization, a 501c3, that's dedicated to helping parents and students, kids, limit their screen time and understand the severity of situation that can be caused by social media or video media. Video media and social media is the fastest way to reach anybody right now. The problem is that there's far too much dangerous, hateful, spiteful, hurtful media out there, and it's readily in the hands of our children. And there are some social media sites. I won't name any because I'm not going to do that. But some social media sites that every 33 seconds they push things like self-harm videos and self-hatred and self-loathing videos and things of that nature. And it's an abomination to see that that's being pushed to our children here in America. It is a travesty and it is disgusting and it shouldn't be allowed on any level. But half the story is working on legislation to change that and to make sure that social media adheres to safe and effective messaging that doesn't damage our children. Now, there's a great side to social media. It can reach people who are in pain. The social media you and I create helps people. The social media you and I create gives back to communities and helps people. And people write into my videos all the time, all around the world, thousands and thousands of people, and say this or that video saved my life, or this video saves my life every time I'm suicidal. I just got a message yesterday from a kid who said, you got me through high school with your videos. So if we just can get more people to create more hopeful, powerful, positive, effective, moving media that changes lives for the better, we can drown out that horrible stuff.
Absolutely.
And push it down, push it down, and push it down. And we can help students and kids and children all around the world and their parents recognize how beautiful they are, that they matter, and to stay right here.
Absolutely. Okay, 2 more questions. Do we have time?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. I'm just going to soak it all in. Okay, I think this is important to ask you this. Medical intervention, because I know when I was younger, I was on antidepressant, anxiety, but that's actually how I attempted suicide, by taking a bottle of Zoloft, which is an antidepressant pill. So there has been said a lot about antidepressant pills that it actually can make things worse. It is kind of a numbing agent, I believe. Like it helps neutralize your feelings, your emotions, so it helps you to be able to function. So there is help in that. I know you, to my understanding, you take meds still today. What is your opinion on medical intervention, and do you believe it applies to everybody, or what would you say? Let's say a parent wants to help their child, and of course, when a child goes to a therapist, then they'll sometimes, oftenly, because they're suicidal, send them to a psychiatrist, and then of course a prescription is written out. Would you say in all cases that medication should be used, or would you say to avoid it in a good amount of cases?
So I look at medication. I take medication every day without fail at the same time every day, no matter the time zone. I do that because it helps me. It doesn't help everybody. What I'll say is this: when someone goes into a doctor's office for high blood sugar, the doctor, high blood sugar and potentially obesity, the doctor doesn't say, "Here's some meds." The doctor says, "Are you working out?" The person says no. They say, well, let's start doing that. The doctor says, what are you eating? The person says, I'm eating terribly. The doctor says, let's get you on this type of food and see how things go in the next 3 months. And then they say, let's also try these 3 things to lower your blood sugar. And let's do these things to balance your diet and your exercise routine. And in 3 months, let's see how you're feeling. The person comes in 3 months, they've lost some weight. Their numbers of blood sugar levels have gone down. They're feeling better. They're healthier. Their skin is better. They're eating anti-inflammatory foods, and they're just overall in a better state of being. That's how I look at psychiatric meds. Psychiatric meds are often a whirlwind because you don't know which ones are going to work for somebody, or if one's going to work for somebody, or if someone's going to be med resistant. So we don't understand the brain enough to just dole out meds to children. Before you dole out meds to children, the psych meds to children, it is my opinion that you need to do all of the things to build their routine and regimen: exercise, eating healthy, education, therapy. Give them the tools to change their brain and change their mind before you just dole out medication. It's really important that you don't just over medicate our children, which is happening all across the country. And let's be honest, psychiatrists are getting kickbacks from big pharma. That's a fact. We've known it for decades. Okay, so I'm not putting them down. I'm saying, look, you have to put the patient first and not your pocketbook. All right? Let's put the patient first and let's call them what they really are. Citizens of hope, try and help people be here tomorrow.
I think it's so important that you say, like, try all these things first, because all the things you mention, for example, breath work, meditation, uh, eating right, sleeping. We know the effects of sleeping, like not depriving them of sleep, meaning cut out the blue light like a few hours before bedtime so they could actually sleep well. Like there's so
Yeah.
many things out there that will actually, because you call it a brain problem, and there are solutions to help support our brain and give them, have them read a personal development book or whatever. There's lots of things. And I know kids, teenagers are very resistant to a lot of these things. So that's probably the biggest challenge, is getting them to do these things on their
Yeah.
own and just providing them as much tools as possible.
Yeah.
So I
I
don't know if
highly
you want to add
recommend
something to that.
Yeah, I highly recommend reading the book, the most recent book by Dr. Daniel Amen, The End of Mental Illness.
There
Read
you
that
go.
book and get that in every parent's hands humanly possible, because you're going to understand. And he's a psychiatrist, but he
Yes.
understands that you can balance brain health through food, and food is medicine, and exercise and routine and regimen and care. There's so many things we can do that can benefit our brain health that don't necessarily take clinical care. But that can take care of us. So I think that if we just put the effort in, we can help change the paradigm and shift in this country, certainly this country and around the globe.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to ask you the last question that is something I ask all my guests. It's a very important question. I know you've already dropped so much wisdom, but I just want to see what your message will be for this. So, if you were to share a piece of wisdom, a life lesson that you've learned through your whole journey in life that you just feel everybody needs to hear right now, again, you kind of probably already said it, but if you were to share one message, piece of wisdom, what would that be today?
I'll share with you is the quote that it's a quote. It's a quote that means the absolute world to me, and I share it at the end of all of my speeches. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. Today is a gift. That is why we call it the present. So let us always and forever cherish this day and every waking moment of this gorgeous gift we all get to call life. We're all meant to be here until our natural end. Suicide is not the answer. You are important, and you matter to me. Be here tomorrow.
Thank you for that. Beautiful. And I think that's what a lot of people need to reiterate is so true. And thank you for being a person that really stands for that and that is speaking your truth and your vulnerability so you can really impact millions of lives. And I want to ask, I will obviously plug everything in the show notes, everything to support you, but I want to ask you personally, how could we best support you to get this message out far and wide? Of course, I want people to, everybody listening, share this, tag Kevin Hines, tag myself, get it out. That's one way, right? But how could we support you on your mission? Because if I, like right now, offline, I want to ask you, how could I get you into more schools? Like, I want to do my part, however that may be. Not that I have all the connections with the schools, but I I really believe it's so important. So how can we best support you to get your mission and your words out there?
Well, first of all, I'm so grateful that you would even say that. So thank you. But, people can just follow me at Kevin Hines Story on Instagram so we can stay in contact there. DM me if you have a story you want to share. I'm glad to hear it. Um, but we're making so we make documentary films. And the new film we're making is called The Net. It's about the 87-year effort to raise a net and stop the suicide at the Golden Gate Bridge forever, the 8 fights that failed, the current fight that has succeeded, and the fact that by the end of this year, 2023, not one more person will ever again die off the Golden Gate Bridge, and it will become the largest, most powerful, and most beautiful beacon for suicide prevention right around the world. So we're making this film. So if you would like to help with this film, we're taking on producers for producer credit and funders right now. And you can just go to my website, kevinhinesstory.com, and go to the comment section and pardon me, the contact section, and that goes directly to my email, and I will respond. If you want to help us make this film that's going to change lives, and that we've already helped change legislation to raise this net, and the idea that we can do this all around the world, then please reach out and we'll see if we can work together.
So amazing. Absolutely. Okay, everybody, show notes, everything that he just shared. Please share this like wildfire. This is such an important episode. And I just thank you, Kevin, for your time, your heart that you're bringing, and all the wisdom through your own personal experience and what you shared today. So I just honor you. You are a miracle. You're meant to be here. And I just thank God for your survival, so you could share your story and help impact so many more lives. So thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you too. Take care.